Well, hello everyone out in Facebook, on Facebook Live, on my Facebook page, and welcome on Spreaker.com to Agree or Disagree the podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can follow me, of course, on Twitter at KEVOLE. Add me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olenek. Follow me on Twitter, as I said, and subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. iTunes, Google, Spotify, wherever you get that. As mentioned, we are doing our lockdown happy hour and trying to condense our 2 hours to twice a week. So our goal here is to get to an hour, but it's quite likely that we will go well into the night, and probably 5 a.m. is what I'm guessing. Is that a fair assessment, Mark? What is your over or under 5 a.m.?
Don't ask Mark. Mark is the one who's always very rule-based. Let's get this done. You need to be get us on topic. He's the teacher of the group.
I will sign back in at 5 a.m. to see your drunken asses, but I won't be there, so.
Fine. How's it going, Mark?
Oh, it's going fantastic. It's been a nice full day. Deirdre and I were podcasting earlier today for 2.5 hours, not including technical issues. So.
Technical issues, yeah. There we go. So, technical issues. What did you guys talk about, Deirdre?
Today we actually discussed the ministers that are currently in the Alberta cabinet and whether or not we think that they should end up with a second term in cabinet.
Oh, I wish I had some dramatic music, but I'm just going to do this. Dun, 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 right now.
Spoiler alert, Chandra should go.
That's a very unique take.
Right.
That is fresh content. I have not heard that Tyler Shandro should not be the health minister anymore. Kristen, what have you been up to?
What do we call it? Hashtag Shandrex?
We did not call it that.
Shandexit. Shandexit.
Kristen, have you done any dramatic readings today?
No, not today. I mean, Derek Sloan's been a little quiet. It's very upsetting. I would like for him to send out some more emails.
Okay.
I want to know more about the radical environmental celebrity left.
Okay.
Or red Tories. Actually, what I should do is just search for random ramblings about red Tories and read those aloud every day.
There you
go. Oh, yes, that's a good idea. Because right now, I think the main topic of content right now is folded sheets. I think there is a lot of household chores are getting good content on social media right now.
Fucking throw it.
That's exactly how you handle it.
Yeah. Fair enough. If you guys are watching or joining in here, thank you for those that have jumped on. If you have any comments on what we have to say, any questions, we will take them as we go through this. And we will, a couple quick things that we do want to get into, and then we'll dig into...
You didn't introduce Deirdre.
Yes, I did.
Sort of.
Hi, Deirdre. Did I introduce you?
He asked me a question.
Yes. Hello, Mark. Hello, Deirdre. Hello, Kristen. I'm a terrible podcast host. Subscribe to my podcast. Sign up on Patreon.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Happy to have you.
How happy?
How happy? Want to start with a couple of quick things that happened. And then before we get into some of the other topics here, we're going to be talking about Joe Biden. We're going to talk about Fort McMurray. We're going to talk about the CPC leadership race, and if there's opportunities for some people to jump in, and I'll ask that a little bit later. But we didn't really want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this from a bit of a different perspective. Is Michelle Rempel-Garner was in the news today, and for those listening on Spreaker, I am using the air quote thing here because I do not believe that this is news, but this caused a controversy because her husband, for those who don't know, is an American. He lives in Oklahoma. She has a pretty long Twitter thread about this. But the article that it was written from the Star today, the Toronto Star, and I'm not, I know that there's going to be some lean left, some lean right. I'm just going to read the first 2 paragraphs of this. Prominent Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner has been working remotely from Oklahoma in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Rempel-Garner said she traveled to Oklahoma, where her husband and stepchildren live, on an unexpected and urgent private personal matter before Canada and the U.S. imposed travel restrictions at the border. She goes on to say that she has been in constant contact. She was part of the virtual parliamentary sessions today. But it wasn't, her explanation for some was, again, not enough. Some people were quite angry. Some people tweeted that why is this okay if Harrington Lake is not? I just was flabbergasted of why is this a story? I guess maybe that's my question. I don't feel that this is an issue. She's doing her job. She's been very open and very candid about what she's doing. She did not get into the personal part of this, and it's quite frankly none of her fucking business. Yes, I said fucking. I'm not necessarily a person that's going to always be on her side on a lot of political things, but I don't understand why this is an issue. Can someone tell me why this is an issue?
Does our reporters take all their leads from Twitter? Question mark? Exclamation? Yeah.
It's because, and we talked about this before, it's because it's Michelle. Like, when the Trudeau stuff happened, which was also ridiculous, like, the level of reaction to that was stupid. But Michelle could literally, like, just tweet out a picture of a puppy, and they'd be like, of course you would do that, Michelle.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the hatred around Michelle, whether earned or not, in some of the people who don't like her and don't like her viewpoint, it's intense. There's a very, very intense perspective around her, intense perspective around Trudeau. Her explanation is fine. And at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Like, really, we're all working remotely. We're all working virtually. Clearly, this has not stopped her from being a very vocal advocate for the things that she believes in. She just happens to be a little farther away from Calgary Nose Hill than she usually is. But we're also, I think, bored. So we're just like, ooh, a scandal. Fancy. Like, that just seems to be the perspective.
And really, that's the Canadian level of scandal.
Right? Yeah, that's what we got.
Because we'll get into the American level here in a bit, but it's utterly ridiculous. Like you said, we're all remote working now. I would have a problem if our MP for Calgary Nose Hill lived full time in Oklahoma, but this isn't normal times. Her office is closed. She's accessible through electronic means. She's doing the job. I would challenge that there's probably about 200 MPs who aren't doing the job anywhere near the level, maybe 300, to what she's doing. So judge her on the merits of what she's doing, not what her ISP is.
Yeah. I agree. Deirdre?
Yeah, basically, it's just kind of, it's one of those things that doesn't really need to be, oh my God. It doesn't really need to be a huge issue because, everyone's working from home. If your home happens to be in the United States, then I guess that's where it is.
And that's not even her home. Like, she went there to see her husband and
got stuck there.
And like, at the end of the day, we want good people to run for office. We want good people to be engaged in political life. And if we are going to go at them for being with their family, like, we can't say on one hand, and progressives are bad at this sometimes. Okay, yeah. We really want women to run. We want women engaged. But then when someone prioritizes their family over their political life and that ends up this way, well, you shouldn't be there. Why are you doing that? Why are you with your husband? Like, it's a consistent hypocrisy on this conversation. And it's not like anybody would accuse Michelle Rempel of not consistently advocating for the needs of Calgary as she sees them. Whether or not you agree with those needs, she has been consistent
Yep.
in that and in advocating for her province.
And the other one is that, okay, she decides that she's going to follow what the progressive Twitterati say, and she comes back home, or she comes to Ottawa to be there in person. What's the complaint then? You're traveling to Oklahoma. How did you get across the border? The border's supposed to be closed. You used exclusive privilege. You've put everybody at risk because Oklahoma, like it wouldn't stop because it's Michelle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, and I think what bothered me the most is this was a family matter, and this is a personal matter, and again, it just feels like we want to make things our business when it's not our business. You know, I mean, I don't even like. For the love of God, Justin Trudeau traveled the virtually 30 minutes from Lloyd, Alberta to Lloyd, Saskatchewan, really, and everyone just I agree with you. I think we're getting bored. I think we need to have some easing of restrictions here just to get people to do something different. I mean, even poor Brock Harrison, friend of some of us here, tweeted a Bible verse, and people were outraged that he tweeted a Bible verse.
Okay, so I'm gonna. So what pisses me off about this, amongst many things, is Brock is obviously, and I will couch this in that Brock is a personal, very good friend of mine and has been for a very, very long time. But Brock has used that particular phrase, like he wrote a beautiful piece about 10, maybe less than 10 years ago. I don't even know what time it is anymore, around his struggle with depression when he was still working for Danielle, and talking about what that was like, and really, as a man speaking about depression, that was huge. And he did that. The first sentence of that piece was that Bible quote. That Bible quote to Brock is a very personal thing, and is something that he uses when he talks about his life and any struggle that he's having. And I don't give a shit what you think. Like, you don't get to troll someone for their religious views on Twitter just because they're a chief of staff to a party that you don't like. And if anyone had ever done that to a chief of staff in the NDP who had tweeted their religious views in a time of incredible crisis, the amount of reactions from people would have been insane. But there's such a huge double standard for conservatives, and it makes me furious. But also it's because it's Brock. Because Brock worked for Scheer, Brock worked for Danielle Smith. So people have a perspective of him, and they don't like him for that. So he could, again, do anything and people would get mad. I'm done now.
But I mean, this goes back to a point we made this episode, last episode, previous episodes. Judge people on the merits of what they're doing, not, you wave a blue flag, so I have to hate everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's part of what's frustrating me is I think that there's some really intelligent people that I know better, but they are planting their flag where on both sides, doing whatever that they do, and it's like it's not authentic, and I don't feel it's honest. I feel and I think that turns a lot of people off because you're not being who you really are. You're being a representative of what someone wants you to be.
Or worse, you're a representative of what you think you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I mean, Andrew Scheer is not editing Brock's tweets.
No, certainly not now.
No.
But that's the whole point. The party isn't sending out. Doesn't matter which party it is, liberal, conservative, or otherwise.
Someone who responded to a tweet that I made defending Brock said, well, like, anything he puts on his Twitter could be seen as government policy. And I was like, well, all the time when he talks about how, like, Tom Brady is the best quarterback that's ever lived, and, like, Tom Brady is a hero, that's not official government of Alberta policy. So you can't pick and choose what you've decided is or isn't based upon your beliefs. And it just fits into this mold that people have about conservatives as well. The conservatives are all these Bible-thumping, hyper-religious people, and that's a bad thing, but that's another conversation. So they just choose to put Brock into that perspective, and that's incredibly unfair.
Yeah, and yeah, it's criticize people or praise people when they deserve it, either way, not make it personal. And I think that fine line often blends too far in, and it is unfortunate. And we are seeing that also in the States, I think, when we are looking at Joe Biden. Of course, Joe Biden got a endorsement from Hillary Clinton today or this week for being the president. But this is not without some questions, as a woman named Tara Reid has come forward accusing Joe Biden of some actions.
Sexual assault. He's doing sexual assault.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was specifically. I was looking at there's sexual assault or everything else there. So sexual assault. Back when was it specifically? It was early 90s.
1993, I believe.
Okay, and she was a staffer. Her mom came on Larry King and did an interview, and Alyssa Milano has defended Tara Reid. But
no.
Well, not defended.
She's defended Biden. She has not defended Tara Reid. She said today that everyone has a voice and we should respect that. But she has vocally supported Joe Biden.
Okay,
in the face
thank
of
you.
these
Okay,
accusations.
That's
important to know because of hypocrisy.
Okay, and now I'll leave it. I will hand this to you to take us where we need to go.
It's not like I have strong opinions on this, so maybe other people could talk, and then I could just bring it home in my own way so that I don't just yell the whole time.
Oh, please go ahead, yell. I'll give us a chance to reflect.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is complete and utter bullshit.
I like these Tuesday late night podcasts.
For two reasons. First of all of a sudden, these Trump Kavanaugh supporters who claim that sexual violence and sexual assault allegations are all politically motivated, oh my God, all of a sudden they care. And we need to believe a woman, but only because it's convenient for them. But they still don't believe anything that was ever said against Biden, against Trump, or against Kavanaugh. They still think those were lies. But it's not lies this way. This way it's fine because that works for them. Secondly, these same people who went out there and supported the women who came forward about Kavanaugh because it's Biden, because they feel like Biden could beat Trump, that is more important to them. So they're sidelining their moral obligation, in my mind, to believe and support survivors because it's not convenient for the narrative that they want to believe in. I understand that this is a complex issue, but either you believe survivors or you don't. To me, that is not complex. It is not complex to say you believe women and you believe women who come forward. And Joe Biden, to me, needs to step aside because if I was an American and I had to choose between two men accused of sexual assault, I would just spoil my ballot and vote for Joe Clark, even though he's not American, because it's disgusting. It's gross. And what's happening right now around the issue of sexual violence and the way that it is being weaponized in the United States politically is just disgusting. I would really just rather someone be consistent. Either you believe them across the board and you fight for the rights of survivors to speak about their truths and what's happened to them, or you don't. To me, and maybe I sound very strident in that, but there's no gray zone around believing or not believing people. To me.
I think you nailed it, is that sexual assault has become weaponized as a tool within the political sphere. We're still going through an era where it was okay to sexually assault somebody as long as nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we're at the end of that, and we're just dealing with, because Joe Biden is 78 or whatever the hell he is, that there's still some of these precursors. The part of the problem down in the States right now is, as you identified, we have two presidential candidates who have both pretty much been, if not admitting, at least been charged in some capacity, even in the court of public opinion, of sexual assault. But we're also in a situation where, and I used this term earlier, was we're now looking at the lesser of two evils. Because one evil has sexually assaulted somebody in 1983 or 93, which doesn't excuse that. But
The other one is an
evil,
absolute maniac. Yeah.
the other one has actually now killed more people in the United States than the Vietnam War did due to his gross incompetence of running a government. And so when Americans say, well, we have to choose a lesser of two evils, oh, you nailed that one all right on the head. And I'm really hoping that, because I don't see Joe Biden stepping aside. I see
No, he won't.
more female Democrats stepping up and saying, I stand with Joe. But I'm really hoping Joe decides this is a one-term thing, and whatever female nominee he has for vice president becomes the next president of the United States. That's the only way.
That should be the best case scenario, unfortunately.
Do you feel that this is getting the attention it should? And the reason I'm asking, and I precursor this that I'm not a fan of a lot of U.S. conservative media. I find that this is not a hot take, I don't think, but they're a little sensational.
You don't like Fox News?
I know, it's shocking. But Charlie Kirk has made a stat about this, about the amount of coverage this got. 0 minutes NBC, 0 minutes ABC, 14 minutes CNN. He's pointed out that Mike Pence not wearing a mask was made more noise than Joe Biden's sexual assault accusation. Is this getting enough coverage in your mind? Does that matter to you?
Yeah, it matters. It 100% matters. And it's the same thing. If you look at the Kavanaugh allegations, those were not covered on very, fair and balanced news networks like Fox that much. And if they were, it was only to degrade Christine Blasey Ford. So the problem is, again, when we're talking about weaponizing this movement, is that when it's inconvenient to one side, it doesn't get covered the same way. And, you have the New York Times putting up this terrible op-ed last week being like, well, there's been no allegations that he's ever done anything inappropriate. And then an hour later, they were like, well, maybe that's not totally true. It is gross. And the problem is when we have this kind of conversation about sexual violence, first of all, it minimizes it to the point where people feel like they can't come forward and can't talk about it because they're going to get called a liar, because all they see in media are women who come forward called liars and called opportunistic and all those other things. And the second thing about it is that it creates a narrative that women come forward for our own benefit. And as somebody who came forward in a political environment, let me tell you, there is no benefit whatsoever to such a situation. There is nothing good that comes out of that for the most part. It sucks, it's terrible, and you're used by both sides as some sort of entity, and you stop becoming yourself. You aren't yourself, you aren't a person, you aren't a story, you're a weapon for other people to use against each other in this conversation, which is why I get so agitated about it, because it's very frustrating to see it happen again and again and again and again every time we have these conversations. We talk about wanting to address sexual violence and sexual harassment in politics, but we only want to address it when we want to yell at the other side for doing something wrong. We never want to look internally at our own problems.
I don't know if I can add much to that. I think you're right. We certainly, I would suggest we saw that during the Alberta election when the Conservatives had Jason Nixon face an accusation, and then the NDP said that there were accusations but did not say who those accusations were specifically for. We saw, I think a lot of people saw that as a complete double standard. In
fairness to Jason Nixon, he was never accused of sexual harassment. He was accused of covering it up. It's two slightly separate things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that either is good.
Yeah.
No, he terminated the lady who complained of sexual harassment.
Right. Yeah, he wasn't actually accused of sexual harassment.
Thank you for clarifying that. I do
probably important.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. But I mean, when Kristen was talking, I was just thinking that was an example. That was one example of it. And
a good example of that, and then we should move on. I'm going to play the role of Mark today. Let's get back to the agenda. But what happened there was that the progressive left didn't want to have that conversation about the NDP. And they kept making the excuse of like, well, we can't have that conversation because then it's going to raise the names of the women. And you can absolutely talk about who is engaged in this. And we had a right to know if we were voting for someone who was found guilty and responsible by an ethics officer of sexual harassment without naming the people involved. And you can bet your bottom dollar that if we were talking about UCP MLAs, those same people who had such an issue with naming them would have no problem naming them. So again, it's about being consistent.
That's fair.
That's fair. We will leave that there and move on to, speaking of inconsistency in my mind, and how one has handled one thing and one is questioning one thing. Hello, NDP. Fort McMurray, I can't even imagine the hell that they must feel right now. 4 years ago, for those who don't remember, they had the forest fire. Brian Jean lost his house. Now there is a flood, and during like the worst. I mean, there's never a good time to have a flood, but having this during now is awful. And Lord and behold, for Brian, for good God, Brian Jean loses his house again. For the people of Fort McMurray, I just feel so awful for them. I missed some of the press conference around what was going on there with Fort McMurray. Did anyone catch kind of what's the latest update there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Here, Dree, you've been quiet. Why don't you?
Yeah, you talk.
Yeah, you say things.
So what's going on in Fort McMurray right now is there is actually an ice jam. So the river started breaking up. It broke up quickly, and it forced other ice maybe that wasn't ready to break yet to break up, and it's caused a big jam. So there's actually about 24 kilometers of ice on the Peace River. There's also an ice jam on the Athabasca River. So there's two of them in that area, and it's a sticky situation for them because there is floodwater coming in as well, but there's also these massive ice jams, and there's nothing that they can do about them because there's so much ice. They were actually talking about that today, whether or not they could bring the army in and have them just blow some up and kind of get it flowing again. But apparently there's too much to do that. And the only thing that they're looking at right now that can assist them is warm weather to actually just melt the ice. But these ice jams, so there's been some photos. I was actually trying to see if I could share my screen. Doesn't seem like I can. So I had I did have some photos that, showed regular flow, and we're talking about a photograph, right? So this is fairly far away, but you can see between, this much space between the top or the bottom of the bridge and the river, and with the ice flow, it's like up to here. So like it is a bit of an issue. They have evacuated in some communities. There is flooding within the town of Fort McMurray.
Yeah, the downtown of Fort McMurray.
Is it a town or a city? It's a town.
Yeah, it's a town because the municipality
is above
Fort McMurray.
Yeah, so it's but there is flooding downtown, and it has, like I said, it's forced evacuations. One, I guess you could call it, benefit of the fact that COVID is around is that there's a lot of empty hotel rooms. So the government has been able to get hotels to open up a little bit because they can't put everybody into a large space because COVID. So those have opened up, and it's
my memory is vaguely from when I was up in Fort Mac a few years ago. Most of the hotels are downtown.
Probably, yeah.
Not on the north side of the river. So temporary measure.
It is, yeah.
Though I did hear one solution on Twitter, because, that's a great source for science.
is that
Clearly,
policy.
if there is anything we have learned, Mark, from COVID-19, is Twitter is the source for science.
yes. So the
It's where you get
recommendation.
all the best ideas.
Yes. So the recommendation from Twitter, the bastion of great ideas, is that they should send Tyler Shandro up, and so the ICE would want to leave the province.
I see.
Yes.
Anyway, back to the serious stuff.
Yeah, so it's being. I listened to the press conference today with Jason Nixon, it's Minister of Environment and Parks, and one of the things that I noticed is that they are calling it a once in a century kind of flood. But see, Fort Mac flooded in 2016, and it may not have been as bad, but it was right after the fires. So there were people whose homes were untouched by the fire who ended up getting flooded instead. It also flooded in 2013. It flooded in 1977, and it also flooded badly in the 1930s. So this does seem to be something that's becoming a little more frequent. Obviously, within the last 7 years here, we've had 3 of them. There's, it's on a floodplain. Fort McMurray's downtown is below water level. So when that water level rises in the rivers that surround the town, they go down. And this is something that we discovered after the 2013 flood down in Calgary. Well, how much it affected High River was that, things became apparent then. The government of Alberta they were the ones that actually kind of bailed out insurance-wise homes in High River. They bought a bunch of homes in High River because overland flooding isn't covered in most insurance policies. And that wasn't discovered until that flood. So, insurance companies don't normally cover that unless you actually have flooding insurance. But after that flood, because it affected so many communities along the Bow River, a number of insurance companies also said, well, you know what, these areas aren't going to be insurable anymore. So
I had one friend who lost their, they managed to save most of the house, but literally the flooding was to the top stair of the basement.
yeah,
And he said, I'm setting up a charge on my sump pump that when this goes out, it lights the house on fire because
it's not worth anything.
The flood doesn't pay. So he goes, I'll have the only house that burns down during a flood. But that was his solution because that was
the Alberta
that's
government.
The frustration they had in 2013. So I can only imagine, Brian Jean, he's got 2 homes in Fort Mac, and he seems to be an attraction of disaster. And this isn't even getting into his personal ones.
The amount of terrible things that have happened to Brian Jean in the last 10 years is just...
Yeah, like we're also talking loss of a son, loss of a sister, loss of a mom.
Divorce.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yes. He got divorced. Yes.
Because Kim is his new wife.
Oh.
They were only married within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so
he met her in Ottawa.
Yeah. And and I don't think he really got a good fair shake in the UCP race. So
wait, what?
Am I speaking out of turn on that?
Mark with his
again this inside baseball.
Yeah.
Mark.
Letting all the secrets out.
I think that, again, we're looking at a community that suffered consistently again and again and again. And the problem with any kind of natural disaster, and you saw this in Port McMurray, you saw this in Slave Lake before, is the ripple effect of a disaster like that takes years for a community to get over. It takes years for a community to get to a point where things feel solid again. And I think they were slowly starting to get there despite the economic downturn and that impact on Fort McMurray. Like, I remember when I was there last year, they just built this new fancy, beautiful airport. Like, their airport is just gorgeous, and it's empty. And there's nobody coming in and out of there. And I remember talking to someone who worked there, and they said, like last year we used to have, this place was packed every single day. And so things in that community have been deeply impacted by a variety of things. So this is just one more kick in the pants.
One more.
Yeah, and it's like, it's very, very hard for that community. But then the other point is that when they go through these things, yes, as Albertans, we all kind of stand up and say, okay, well, let's support them. But you still have those dicks who are like, well, I mean, this is what happens to a community that just survives on a dying industry that nobody cares about. Like, so there is still that narrative that surrounds the community, and it's hard. But you're also not just talking about Fort McMurray proper. You're talking about First Nations communities, Métis settlements, small, remote, rural communities. Like, these are people who are having a very hard time accessing services and supports already. And now the only major urban centers that they could go to is inaccessible to them. So this is really a very difficult thing to have happened in the middle of everything else that's going on.
Yeah, and I heard John Horgan on the radio today saying he had a conversation with Jason Kenney, and he's expecting gas will be around 50 cents very soon in Alberta. That specific topic is a topic for another time, but where that fits is that's not going to help Fort McMurray in any way, shape, or form at all. So certainly not a good situation. In terms of the NDP, though, and I'm not trying to pick on the NDP, but
Oh, please do.
okay. Well, no, I'm going to. I might here. This was from Jeremy Nollis. Flood resilience money for Fort McMurray was announced by Rachel Notley more than a year ago. It was put on hold by Jay Kenney with no timeline for moving ahead. Basically, the NDP is saying that the UCP was not prepared for this flood, and the NDP was already. Can we clarify what? You guys are smarter than I am. Tell me what really happened here. What's really going on?
Well, didn't you know you can take budget money and then you can build a dike with it, and then that keeps all the floodwaters out.
Oh. That's why,
that's what
Mark,
they got planned with Calgary,
that's why
because,
I moved from getting my scientific facts from Twitter to listening to you. So, yeah.
Well, anyway, when you make campaign promises a week before you call the election, but don't actually put money towards it, that's exactly the same as the incoming government canceling something. Because that's what we're talking about. What they're referring to primarily is a campaign promise that the NDP made to spend right before the election that was not something you can actually do right before the election, because government spending stops the second that an election is called, and the UCP just didn't go forward with it, is also part of this conversation. So I know this is shocking, but Jeremy Nollet is being a little bit disingenuous.
What?
He may be slightly biased, but it was actually 2018 that these conversations were going on. So this was a year before. This was February of 2018, a year before the election. So one of the problems that happened for Fort McMurray is that in the 2016 wildfire, the flames of that fire wiped out 239 structures for the waterways. So Fort McMurray was actually in a more difficult position after the 2016 fire, just because of the fact that it had actually wiped out some of their flood mitigation, which in a way was also kind of that double whammy of then being hit by a flood that they might not have had to deal with had the fire not wiped out, right? So this was something that was absolutely on the radar of both the provincial and municipal governments at the time, that were like, yeah, we need to replace these. They absolutely knew that needed to be done. Mm. Whether or not, it does come down to cost. Fort McMurray was like a multi-billion-dollar disaster. It was a huge amount of money. And it happened so quickly after 2013, the 2013 floods, which were also a multi-billion-dollar disaster. Like, this this was a huge hit to the federal, or sorry,
And
to the
I looked
provincial
right at
government,
Slave Lake, which was in 2012.
right?
Right.
Like it was kind of
Love
bang, 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 and all of these things just, there were reasons why the provincial government had to pay more. So, so whether it was for additional firefighters or because people's home insurance didn't cover these things, and like we're talking, High River was hit so badly, but not just High River, Calgary Elbow, Canmore, like, and in Canmore you have houses that are worth, a good $750,000 at the low
More than
end
that.
anyway, right? Those aren't the ones that like go down by the creek. So you've got all of these, like, insurance didn't cover it. And because it was such a widespread disaster, the Alberta government stepped in and was like, okay, yeah, we'll help people. And it took a long time. In the building that I had worked in the last time I worked for government, which was 2015, there was actually another office that was for like flood mitigation people. Like they were still working on it 2-3 years later. And I think they only finished it up once the NDP got in and was like, we really need to finish this up. This has been however long, and just get the money out there, get it to the people and finish this. But it took quite a while. And so there was, you're looking at probably a 4 or 5 year period that was just kind of catastrophic in unexpected expenses on the Alberta government.
Well, that's the thing, though. There's always going to be unexpected expenses
Because
with
your
natural
government?
disasters, because this is what happens. Whether it's Fort Mac, you're spending the money, or Slave Lake, or High River, or Calgary, it's going to happen every year. There's always a contingency put into the budget for that. The fact that there was a flood in 2013 and a flood in 2016 kind of tells me that we're not on a 100-year cycle. We're on a 3-year cycle in Fort Mac. So we need to do something. So if in 2016 we didn't act, in 2017 we didn't act, and then 2018 we finally found some money to act and didn't act, that tells me they didn't take the 3-year cycle seriously. We still haven't actually
and it's even,
built
even that's new, right? Like this is...
But we still haven't built anything for flood mitigation in Calgary. Like we got lucky so far. It's still early. We haven't had the big rain of late May, early June that we normally get in Calgary. What happens when downtown Calgary floods, this year? Surprisingly, nothing, because nobody's working there this year. But it hasn't been dealt with.
In fairness to the NDP, which is a sentence I do not frequently say, and the UCP,
we can mute you if you like.
I know that, but mainly the NDP. The mitigation efforts, like a lot of the issues around flood mitigation in Calgary, is also linked to consultation with First Nations that are in the surrounding areas. And there have been huge issues with the First Nations communities around what mitigation efforts look like in their communities and whether it would negatively impact them. So that's been one of the biggest steps. And as the Crown, we have a duty to consult, and the honor of the Crown needs to be upheld in any kind of consultation process. And that's been one of the biggest stopping points, is trying to get to a mitigation effort that doesn't negatively impact
other communities'
abilities to practice their treaty rights.
And it's not even just First Nations communities, because yes, Morley's affected, but so Springbank, right? Like that's where they're wanting to put the dam, is in Springbank. And there were a number of residents of Springbank that were very much against that as well. I don't recall exactly why, but it's been really
what is Banff
difficult.
hated? So is it Banff or it's Banff? Banff Kananaskis. They have like a big thing about it. What is that?
Well, they've got flooded pretty badly. Like they lost a ton of infrastructure along the river. So
right,
that was their issue with it. And hadn't talked with the town CAO. There is some big flood mitigation spending going in there. Like they're doing some pretty awesome stuff with a ton of concrete, and it's pretty cool. But I mean, for what I took out of the whole Springbank issue of why Springbank doesn't want it, is there's a lot of expensive houses there.
Yeah.
And a high degree of
multi-million-dollar.
Yeah, this is NIMBYism. I don't want a dam in my backyard. I want a clear view to the mountains. And that's where a lot of the now First Nations Tsuut'ina, different story there. They don't have the multi-million-dollar homes,
Yeah.
and so it's a completely different ballgame.
But I'm remembering that Miranda Rosen, when she was running in Bath Kananaskis, she gave like a whole speech about how she was anti-Springbank.
Yeah, and even the Alberta Party candidate out there was also anti-Springbank because that wasn't the best solution for Camrose.
That was Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda wasn't a fan of that either, and I know there was some consternation between Brenda and Greg because Greg is well versed. Greg Clark is well versed in that flood scenario, and he didn't like the reservoir scenario, which was the alternate one type thing. So, but at the end of the day, we flooded the economic center of the province and 7 years ago, and we haven't done a damn thing to change that. So we cross our fingers every spring, hoping that 100-year flood doesn't decide to come early.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting to hear this because, I mean, I know that there's been talk, one of the things in terms of COVID that I've been hearing here a little bit in BC, and Dr. Henry talked about this a little bit, is just in terms of the wildfire season that's coming and the flood season that's coming here in BC, and COVID is not, she has some worries about that. I know Dr. Hinshaw's talked a little bit about how they've done that, but I have to admit that that's just something that I am a little concerned about going forward, as well as how that's going to be, like how that will not help things in any way, shape, or form, either way. But
anyway, until we learn how to build a dam with money, it would be nice if we had government move a little faster. And I'll be as one to rail against democracy and say, sometimes the public interest supersedes some other things. And
and I think it's
public
so
consensus.
It's so easy to criticize government. Like, it's so easy. And I think that we're discovering this, that the NDP are loving doing this now in opposition. It's very easy in opposition. It's very easy as a podcast. But the intricacies that are involved in something like Springbank, because the NDP wanted to bring it in. That was something that they talked about the entire 4 years they were in. They weren't able to. That was something that the UCP have also talked about. It is a complex thing. And I think understanding that some of this stuff is not as easy as just saying, well, you suck and you should do things better is an important part of. But then, then what would we do with our hot takes?
We should put this into the red tape reduction forum, because then they would fix it, because that's what they do.
I had a great idea for red tape reduction today, and I was very proud of myself.
We didn't even jump up and down on Grant Hunter at all on our podcast.
We didn't. No, we didn't.
That's because he's inoffensive. He just hangs out. He's like, let's just do stuff better, guys.
I like that type of politician. Let's just do stuff better. If I ever run, that's going to be my thing. Just do stuff better.
He doesn't. You know what? You know what makes him great? He doesn't tweet.
That seems to help people a lot.
Yeah. I swear to God, I remember working for the PC caucus when they first got Twitter, and I was like, this is going to be bad. And it was.
It's always bad. Yeah.
The narrator.
And it doesn't even matter. I quoted one of Adriana Lagrange's tweets, which I'm sure it wasn't actually her tweet, but coming out of, the education minister about Education Week and how, we support all of the people who support education kind of thing. And it got ratioed hard, which it's going to. And so I was just like, what do you think the staffer who wrote this tweet was thinking when they did it? Nailed it? Turning off notifications.
Yeah.
This isn't going to end well.
I'm going for lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
A long 5-hour lunch.
I'm putting out my tweet because I'm supposed to do this, and then I'm walking away, and I'm not going anywhere near it afterwards.
Yeah, but that's also the way government works. You have scheduled tweets. You have scheduled days in the government calendar of okay, this is this day, or this is this week, and this is what we're going to do this week.
And we have to talk about it.
And if she hadn't done it, that would have been an issue too. So
exactly. There's no way.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't in so many of these situations now.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, maybe that is maybe that is the curse of governance, is that it doesn't matter if you don't get things exactly right, you're going to have detractors.
Yep.
I mean, as someone who didn't pay attention closely before 2015, I don't know what it was like in the public sphere.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah,
Just
I know what it was like
differently terrible.
after, but I don't know what it was like before. And I'm assuming that it was the same. Like, I'm assuming it was just as bad-ish, except
It was
that
different. It was different. But I mean, like,
it went
I, for
left
example,
and it went right.
like I worked for, I am extremely proud, will go to my grave being extremely proud that I worked for Ed Stelmach. Ed Stelmach, to me, is one of the best premiers we have ever had. I believe strongly that he will be remembered in a much fonder way than he was at the time. He brought in the 10-year plan on homelessness. He brought in land use planning. He brought in things that were huge, huge impacts on Alberta and like life-changing for Albertans. But he was shit on all the time because people just didn't like, you know, he created the Wild Rose because of all this other stuff that happened around, you know, looking at the same thing that Rachel Notley later did, which was looking at what oil companies were paying and all these different things. But your work is never appreciated in the moment as a politician. A lot of the work that you do, it takes time. Even the PST, people hated Brian Mulroney for bringing in the GST.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're very grateful for it now as a solid income thing, which we had in Alberta. But
Right. Well, speaking of that,
Such an idealist.
that's a great way to transition to our
am.
next topic. And there's a question. We do have a comment and a question, and I think that this kind of relates into what we are going to talk about. And it's from Dave White. Thank you, Dave. I would like to know if there are different camps of conservatives in the CPC, as there seems to be here in Alberta. As in Alberta Party Conservatives, compared to the UCP, who seem to be far right. From the little I know of the federal Conservatives, Andrew Scheer would be the same flavor as the UCP. Are there more moderate camps within the federal Conservatives? And, of course, what we're seeing right now is we've seen Peter MacKay, we've seen Erin O'Toole, we've seen dramatic readings from Kristen for Derek Sloan. Praise bring them. But my question also is Doug Ford has been considered more far right, but I think through this pandemic, he certainly has not been as far right. So this leads me to two questions. Is there room for a Doug Ford, Brian Pallister, or a Scott Moe to enter the CPC race? And we've talked a bit about this, Red Tory. Maybe you guys can tackle this. I get here. But the first question is do you think there is room for now other people to enter this race? And I'm thinking Moe, Pallister, and Ford specifically because of the job that they have done with their province.
Scott Moe is super boring, so I don't think anybody wants Scott Moe to do anything.
Scott Moe also hasn't won an election yet other than his own seat, so he's not going.
Okay, fair enough.
And he's got to win an election in October, which I don't doubt is going to be a problem, but he's got to win one first.
Right. Okay.
He's also competing against an NDP leader who left his post to go work in hospitals to save people from COVID-19. So he'll have a great time.
Yes, that'll be a close. That'll be fun. But still, okay. Doug Ford and Brian Pallister, or someone else.
Before we let Deirdre get in, because she's actually got something. I need to clarify something.
You can see her just be like.
I need to clarify something. Doug Ford is not super right wing.
Thank you.
They're the hard right wing I would put as social conservatives, like the Bible thumpers, love them or hate them, hard right wing social conservatives. Then you've got populists, which are completely different beasts than conservatives altogether. Doug Ford is a populist. Yeah. Jason Kenney is a SoCon and a populist. But don't put them into the same category. Doug Ford is not super right-wing. Doug Ford is wherever his bread is buttered. And right now, his bread is being buttered by being Hulk smash COVID premier. Oh, come on. He stands at the
Nice.
mic. He's like,
No, it's like that's all
I'm going to crush you.
Mad.
You yahoos.
Doug,
Doug Ford
Doug,
mad.
Doug fix COVID.
That should be his campaign on it. Go ahead. Sorry, Deirdre.
So first, I want to answer Dave's question. So, how many different conservatives are in the CPC? And Mark, you can back me up on this. There are a minimum of 17 different types of conservatives in the CPC. Minimally. So, you've basically got the same thing federally as what happened to the UCP provincially, right? We had the PCs, we had the Waldros, they merged. There were people that were a little more to the left and a little more to the right and much more to the right, and they all found a home. And let's remember to mention the bunny ears that are going on here with the air quotes, because home is really up for debate. But the same thing happened federally. So with the demolition of the Progressive Conservative Party, you now have a Conservative Party of Canada. You know, Stephen Harper has given more than one fantastic talk on how if you lean to the left, you don't belong in a conservative party. Like he says it. He's just like, why would they want to vote conservative? And so there were walls put up. That was actually one of the things that I loved about the Alberta Party is they put up walls too. If you think that certain people don't deserve to have rights, you can have those beliefs, but have them somewhere else. You're not welcome in our party. I loved that. That was probably one of the best things that Greg Clark said was, you know what, we are a big tent party, but we have hard walls. There are certain things that are unacceptable to us as a party. That was fantastic to hear. And, you know, the whole everyone is welcome. Okay, everyone is welcome. And some of these people have highly, highly differing views that to some of us are deal breakers. Right? And
so I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in a little bit on that and take a little bit of umbrage with what you just said. So I don't think that, I can't believe I'm about to defend Stephen Harper. But I mean, I went through the wars of the, conservative merger. I was obviously, it's shocking to no one, on the PC side of things.
No, that's exactly where you are.
Yeah. But there was never a sense from Stephen Harper that if you were center left that you weren't welcome in the party. The idea always was that, we have a purpose. That was always what Stephen Harper drove home to people. And since he left, that party's gone to, it's like a dumpster fire of garbage. But since he was there, and I wasn't a Stephen Harper supporter, I did not vote conservative under Stephen Harper. I am not a fan. But Stephen Harper brought the party together in a way of being able to control the craziness that exists within that party by saying, our number one goal right now is to win. That's what matters. That is what is more important than your abortion nonsense or whatever else is going to come out of your mouth right now. We want to win. And we are going to win by playing to the center. And I talked about this on our last podcast. Is that's what Stephen Harper was great at. Was he made because they were given a minority government, and he learned that lesson. And he learned that in order to get the majority that he wanted, he had to play to the people who felt the Conservative Party were scary. So he kept a lid on so many of these people. And Andrew Scheer is so weak that he has been unable to control that component of the caucus. And so instead of controlling them, he's just taken the whole party and been like, let's all go here. Let's all do this together and be nonsense people and not ever speak up for what matters to us, because God forbid we offend anybody ever at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have also the leadership people doing the exact same thing now, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Harper's commentary didn't come until 2017. Look up the Ben Shapiro interview with Harper. That was where he said that, which was actually why it was surprising to me, because I was like, that doesn't seem, yeah. But so So are there a multitude of conservatives in that party? Absolutely there are. Is that where some of the friction comes from? Yes. And exactly like Kristen said, Harper was able to say, our goal is to win. Our goal is to form government. We'll figure everything else out later. And, probably, let's say, to Harper's credit if you're on one side of the spectrum, and not to Harper's credit if you're on the other, he kept things really tight, and he didn't let a lot of those controversial things come up during the time that he was leader. So that probably didn't impress people who expected him to do something for them on that side of the spectrum. I think that's how he managed to form a majority government in 2008. Nope.
No, it was 2008.
2011.
2011.
Was it 11 when he first formed his first?
No, he won his first election.
Minority government.
Minority, another 8.
And then majority, and then out.
Oh, yeah, because that's when I had to join the Wild Rose. Thanks, Brock.
But this is showing where the value of the Red Tories are. Sorry, Derek Sloan, we do have value. Is that pre-merger, the Red Tories kind of ran the PC party, and that was the whole reason the reformers wanted out, is they didn't seem to feel like they had their voice. They came back together under Harper, but Harper didn't discredit the Red Tories, and so as much as the Red Tories didn't necessarily have control, they still had influence. And what you're seeing now is a Conservative Party without the influence of Red Tories, because we've been made to feel like we have no value there. And what the Conservatives need at this point is a conscience, because they are exceptionally callous, they are exceptionally narrow focused, and they're not paying attention to what's going on. And it would be Red Tories who are standing up going, guys, COVID, pull your head out of your ass. Time's not right now. And
Andrew McDougall wrote this amazing article today. He's Harper's former comms guy. And he wrote this article talking about how, it's basically all about preaching to the converted and not trying to bring anybody else into the congregation.
Yep.
And that was Harper's interview to a T.
And this is our base. Because when Harper formed government, he gave some of his top positions to Red Tories. Mm-hmm. As much as I fucking hate him, he gave position to Tony Clement. Jim Prentice. I don't hate Jim Prentice, just Tony Clement.
In the
Jim
clouds.
Prentice,
the cloud.
Peter MacKay, back when he didn't suck. All these people who were opponents of his, and he gave them key positions in his government, which is also, just side note, another thing that Jason Kenney has not really done. But that's an aside. So you give people positions in your party who are not necessarily aligned with you in every single way, and it makes your party stronger. And that is something that Andrew Scheer has not done. You see him giving, Pierre Poilievre might as well be the leader right now, because that's the only person that I see for the vast majority of time speaking.
Didn't Scheer make the former Liberal the deputy leader of the CPC?
But that was his attempt at being like, look how open and welcoming I am. But she's become just as rabid as everybody else. It's like, being a conservative doesn't mean thinking Justin Trudeau is like Fidel Castro's love child. Those are not the same thing. I don't know when we became a party of just hating Justin Trudeau and having no value outside of that.
When the party became about populism and less about conservatism, that's when it became, let's hate Justin Trudeau, because they don't know what else they're supposed to do. There's no conservative principle says this is what a conservative would do in this environment. So all they've got is, well, some people hate Trudeau, so we'll be the party that hates Trudeau. That's not how you galvanize a country.
Michael Cooper made into a real boy, which is how I see Pierre Poilievre, is not who should be your spokesperson.
No. And this goes back to the question I was asking a month ago and been asking for a while, is before COVID hit, I was just asking the question, what's the next generation of conservatism look like? And now I'm asking it, what does post-pandemic conservatism look like? Because
Yeah.
we can't be these austerity, damn the torpedoes, damn the doctors, damn everybody.
No.
And we'll get through this as conservatives, because that's not going to work. That's not going to resonate. So identify what 21st century conservatism is and lead, rather than waiting to see what the freaking Republicans are going to do. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen down there is in November, they're going to get wiped out completely, and they're have to go through the same exercise of figuring out what it means to be a Republican.
I don't know if they're going to get wiped out, but that's a whole other topic. I don't know.
I don't think they're going to win the presidency, the Senate, or the House.
I'll bet you on that.
You're right.
I hope you're right, but I'll bet you. I won't bet you on that because I don't want to cheer.
But when it
disagree
comes
with
to, I'm just going to quickly say this, and then I'll stop talking. And I need to put my dress up so I don't look like I'm not wearing
Whoa.
clothes. When we talk about what the new generation of conservatism needs to look like after the pandemic, what it really needs to look like is, okay, let's talk about what compassionate conservatism, and I'm not saying that in the ironic, stupid way that it's been used before, but what that actually looks like and how we are efficient in the way that we spend our money. Because there is a million ways within government spending that we can be more efficient that doesn't hurt people. I'm not talking about fucking over doctors or teachers. I'm talking about looking at our spending and being conscientious and clear in the way that we do that, and purposeful in the way that we put our money forward. Every time the government sees a problem, they announce a new grant program, which is the stupidest fucking thing you could possibly do, because you have a million agencies you already fund. So fund them more. Work with them to develop grant programs that are not 1 year or 2 year programs that develop a need and then you're done. Work with them to actually create substantial programming. Work with who you already have. Enrich your municipalities to actually be able to provide these programs. Look at a way that you can build these things in and do things in a purposeful way. So much government spending is reactive. So if you want to be a fiscal conservative, you should be a fiscal conservative in a way that stands up to reactive government spending and says, I want to be meaningful in the way that we spend our money. Why do we only do 1 year budgets? We should do 5 year budgets. Granted, we don't have a PST, which we should have, but we should look at the way we spend our money and be thoughtful. Like, that is a big part of why I'm a fiscal conservative, is because I want to see thoughtful government spending. I don't want to see draconian cuts. I want to be meaningful in how government spends their money, and I want to actually save money. That's
I just enjoyed all of this. I enjoyed all of this, and I know that.
I said Kristen for PM.
Yeah.
Well, those watching on Facebook would have seen it. So
yes, and I know that
you just wrote the Conservative Manifesto, and we recorded it. So
and this is very important. And there is a demand for a proper Conservative Manifesto. But I know that we are heading to our time up, and I think that I enjoyed last time how we put that option out to people who were still watching.
Hey, wait a minute.
That we would continue.
Hey, I'm here. Sorry, I something.
You missed me coming up with the next Conservative Party.
It was fantastic. You should watch.
And it didn't involve one tax cut.
Oh wow! There we go. Impressive.
Well, so the other thing we never mentioned with the whole Conservative race, and I'll pick this up from Jenny Byrne because she knows more about the Conservative Party than I do, is that because everything is on hold and the Conservative Leadership Committee, or whatever the hell they call themselves this week, isn't going to make a decision until May 13th on next steps. The rumor is they may actually open up the contest. Yeah.
God, I hope so.
If they don't, they might as well just light everything on fire and call it a day.
Oh, they're in a horrible place right now with the people that are running.
Well, and to go back to your point earlier about Brian Palliser, Doug Ford, no. Like, Doug Ford is too much of a lightning rod for a lot of people. I love Slender Man, as I refer to Brian Palliser. I think Brian Palliser is the future of the party. I think somebody like Brian Palliser talks about carbon tax in a positive way. He went to town on Legault about Bill 21. He had no issue. He that's all he wanted to talk about at the premier's meeting. They were like, "Can we talk about oil?" He was like, "No, I'd like to talk more about racism." Brian Hauser is a great example of what the party should be. Granted, I would like him to be female, but that's neither here nor there. So I think somebody like that would be fantastic. I would love it to be Brad Wall, but that's not going to happen. He has a beard now, so I'm super into that as well. So there are a lot of options, but we need to also move beyond all of these people that are consistent go-tos, like, oh, well, this white guy is in charge of something, so let's give it to him. Like, there are other people.
Oh, and I'll echo that. Regardless of what it is, I would like to see more women running. I'd like to see more women winning.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more women leading.
Absolutely.
That's the future.
Natalie Pond is the future of the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
She is the person that I want to see as the poster child, as the poster speaker, because I have never heard her say something so ridiculous that I just want to. Well, she's smaller than I am.
Like, you're not behind Mark's idea about me, but that's fine. Natalie would be fine also.
Well, she could be your Minister of Finance. Come on.
Oh my God! Yes,
she's an accountant. She's a CPA.
I'm already your chief of staff. I'm putting your team together. It's you. It's Natalie. We'll find some other women. It'll be awesome.
Got so much shit for that article that she wrote. People going at her about friendly fire, and you shouldn't say that's the problem with the Conservative Party. Is they say that they want to be open to ideas, but they're open to not conservative ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. She really was. I mean, to me, because she was the first person that I saw, Kristen. I didn't see your ideas first. I saw Natalie's first, and hers were. She was this kind of breath of fresh air. Oh, we have another question.
She is a breath of fresh air. She's fantastic. Natalie's amazing.
Yeah. She was always like, there is the voice of what the Conservative Party should be, what the future of conservatism is. Yeah, that's how I always thought of her.
That's what we need, is we need a leader who recognizes that Natalie Pond is
the one.
Yeah.
I feel like we should all tag her in this and be like, hey, buddy. I'll text her and be like, hey, buddy, do you want to be like Paul Barton?
Nice.
If I contact her, she's like, who do you want? No, I don't take those friend requests. So.
Well, why
we are friends in real life.
I know.
Okay, one last question.
I'm not. I could walk past her at the West End Mall and I wouldn't know.
Aww.
It's not to say that I wouldn't like to know her.
Fred Deidre was like, aw. Maybe we can bring her on here next time.
Yeah, you should meet Natalie. She just is.
Anyway, on to the other question. We've got 2 questions. We've gone from 0 to 2 questions. So we
have 2 questions?
Where's the second?
Shit, Tuesday
night. You interrupted me on it.
Okay, sorry, Kevin. Sorry.
I'm just trying to think here because we tried to.
Kevin's like, no, we didn't have another question.
1 is still better than 0.
It's true. We're getting conversation, and that's what matters. I'm kind of trying to be worthy of time here.
Because we're still going to go on afterwards for those who are still watching.
Yeah, but dude, if we have questions, we should answer them.
I know. Yeah, I'm there.
So the 2 quick questions.
I was talking to Kevin. When I say Deirdre, I was talking to Kevin.
I say due to
So who's promoting these austerity budgets? And Kristen said we needed a provincial sales tax.
Who said we needed an austerity budget?
Kristen. No. Kristen said we didn't need an austerity budget. No.
Yeah.
Did not need an austerity budget.
No.
And then,
but she definitely said we need a sales tax.
I have zero doubt that after this, our next budget provincially will be an austerity budget. Also, please ignore whatever is happening behind me. My cat is on crack. We will get an austerity budget.
Yes.
1,000%. But the problem is that Alberta, like Ted Morton of all people, I don't count him out to quote Ted Morton, but he said it's the third rail in Alberta politics. We never want to talk about provincial sales tax, and we fundamentally need one because as a province, I don't know how we're supposed to continue functioning on basing all of our budgets on oil revenue and thinking that we can live with the cost that we have without that.
Okay, just to be fair, Ted Morton wasn't promoting a PST. What he was promoting
he's
is
promoting
that
something
we keep the money that was going to Ottawa.
He wants to get rid of the GST and just like move it.
He wants to get rid of contributing, financially.
Hey man, I'll take baby steps towards someone like Ted Morton saying like GSTs are fine.
Well, he didn't. He said it should continue to be a GST, but then all the money should be then rerouted back to Alberta. So the idea is that the government takes
HST.
It's an HST, but 0% goes to Ottawa and 5% goes to us. And so the federal government's in charge of the administration and takes.
So it's a PST that goes to the provincial government, but you get to blame the feds.
Oh, there we go. Welcome to Alberta.
Yeah.
Also,
that's what we need.
Before Ted Morton became the firebrand conservative he is, he lived in Israel on a kibbutz because he used to be a hardcore communist.
Oh, interesting.
That is my favorite Ted Morton fact of all time.
It is now my favorite Ted Morton fact.
That.
I'm saving room for I don't have any favorite facts about Ted Morton.
I don't really.
But yeah, we need to. So whoever asked that question,
Sorry, used to be a communist.
Budget.
Is up there.
I don't want an austerity budget. I want a PST, and I want stability in the way that we fiscally plan in this province, which we have not had ever. So.
Well, let's leave
Agreed.
Let's leave it there. We will be back on Saturday. We will be having a couple of conversations I suspect we'll be having is BC is expected to announce their relaunch
Reopening.
strategy on Friday. It is coming out. Ontario and Quebec have already done it. I don't think we're going to hear anything from Alberta. I doubt we're going to hear anything from Alberta this week.
Kenny said end of the week, but he also said that last week.
Yeah.
He's got a flood to take care of.
In fairness, I would rather that they don't rush it. Like when we keep talking about this, I wish that I don't want us to rush it. Do it when we're ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which jurisdiction. All they should just say is, here's how we think this would lay out. We don't know what day this starts.
That's essentially what Quebec and Ontario already did.
Yeah.
But we have
Quebec's
a plan.
that date, though.
Only for the first stage, not for the other stages. Nobody has dates for the other stages. They're all kind of ideals.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. We'll probably be some other stuff. We'll talk more about the Fort McMurray, what's going on in Fort McMurray, BC. We'll talk about, and probably something else will happen that will get people riled up. Next Tuesday, we have a guest, actually. May 7th.
We do?
Yes, we do. I haven't had a chance to tell you, sorry. But her name is Renu Bakshi will be joining us. And we are going to be talking about, we're all excited. Yes. Yes, she's going to, we're going to be talking about how to communication in this time. How does that work? So she'll be joining us and maybe we'll get her perspective on a few things. That will be fun. So how do we follow everyone on Twitter? The cesspool that it is?
At Mitchell_AB.
Kristen Rayworth.
Mm-hmm.
I take offense to the source of all scientific knowledge that you just slammed.
What?
But you can also find me there at AB Mark Taylor. And
also,
to my throw out, because we didn't start off, I'm on week 1 or 2 of 17 of beer shirts. So, my Citizen Brewing beer shirt, because support local, buy local beer.
Been there.
Also, I like that Kevin and Mark look exactly the
They
same.
do. They so matched it. Actually,
That
kind of
is
so do I.
Look,
You and
yeah,
I do
it's-
too.
Next time I'll wear my flat cap.
There we go.
We should all wear tube tops next time, just like I am. It'll be great.
Nobody wants me.
Nobody
need
wants
it.
me in that. Nobody wants me in that.
Okay,
right.
so Mark, who's still watching that we should invite on?
I don't know.
She means Kevin.
Oh yeah, Kevin. Is he watching?
No. You mean you mean Kevin, who's still watching?
Oh yes,
Kevin, the host of the show.
Kevin,
I'm the host.
yes, Kevin, the host of the
That's
show.
Kevin.
Not Kevin Hughes. He may still be watching, but we don't know yet till we ask Kevin.
Whoever is watching, there'll be a party.
I don't know how the things are coming in either. I have 3 notifications.
There we go. All right. We will talk to everyone soon.
Saturday even.
Saturday even.
Saturday.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
And yes.